Good morning to everybody, and thank you for participating to this session today on the Horizon Europe Model Grant Agreement as a catalyst for simplification and synergies with other programs. I'm very pleased that we have with us today a number of distinguished speakers that they have all the technical experience and policy knowledge about the importance of this model grant agreement and why we should go corporate. As you probably know, all of those that you're participating in this session, one of the biggest priorities in the next financial period was simplification, harmonization between the different funding programs under the Horizon, under the European Commission, and synergies between those programs. So we believe in the European Commission under the leadership of DG Budget that an harmonized and corporate model grant agreement will be a catalyst to deliver and achieve these objectives and to improve and reinforce the synergies between the different Commission programs, union programs. I have with us today distinguished speakers such as Victoria Zil Casado, Head of Unit in the Financial Rules Unit of and Program Management Unit of DG Budget of the European Commission. Hi, Victoria. We have been collaborating many years together, and in particular the last period in order to deliver this corporate model grant agreement. Reinhard Schulte, Head of Unit of the Common Legal Support Service in DG Research and Innovation, working very hard with Victoria to deliver this new model grant agreement, but also in the past, in the context of Horizon 2020, where harmonization of rules, simplification, and electronic transactions and contracts has been one of the biggest priority. Eric Hanseling, representing the German presidency, but also in his function as Head of Unit for Research and Innovation in the EU in the Federal Ministry of Education and Research. Hi, Eric. We have been working very closely together in the context of the European research area. I'm very pleased to have you today with us also in a more practical legal aspects to discuss how the member states see this approach, new approach, which will have an impact, of course, on the implementation of Horizon Europe program. And finally, Annika Thies from Helmut Association, Director of Brussels office. Hi, Annika. We have been discussing lengthy over the years with you directly or through my colleagues on simplification measures, what we can do to deliver a framework program for research and innovation that works for the beneficiaries in simplified and helps you to participate in an easier way and open way in the program. Very happy to have you today with us.
Hi, Anna. Happy to be here.
I would like first to check whether we can hear Victoria now. No, Victoria, we can't for the moment. So I suggest that I'll ask the first question to Reinhard, and then we try to solve the problem with you, Victoria. I hope it will be possible. Reinhard, I would like to ask you, for all those that they are participating to this session, to inform us about what are the new features in the new Horizon Europe Model Grant Agreement, which of course it is developed in the context of the corporate model grant agreement. Tell us what is the novelties, what are the changes, what the beneficiaries has to expect.
Yes, thank you, Anna, and hello to everybody. Yes, we will roll out a new model grant agreement for Horizon Europe soon and share it with the greater public. Now, this new novelty is, to which I will come in a moment, are, of course, quite interesting to read, but I think a basic message, first of all, should be that this is not a revolution compared to Horizon 2020. In fact, the new model grant agreement, corporate model grant agreement, took the Horizon 20 model grant agreement as an inspiration for designing the corporate model for the other programs. But still, of course, there are some novelties and they are quite interesting, and we will go into them into more details. I was just to mention the most important, perhaps a change in the personal costs, where we will now have a corporate model where we will change from an hourly rate to a daily rate calculation. A number of different options will not any longer be available, but still we will offer full flexibility for existing time recording systems to be reflected properly so that nobody will lose out under Horizon Europe. Then we have also simplified on our experience with the project-based remuneration in Horizon 2020, that approach a number of features which will be easier to use for those countries, entities making use and basing their funding on project-based financing. Then one should also not forget to mention changes in the wider reliance on the beneficiaries' cost accounting practices, notably in terms of internal invoicing, where we are really going a step further towards beneficiaries' practices, and we have already heard from stakeholders that they're quite satisfied with this new approach. Then we will also have some novelties in IPR with a stronger emphasis on exploitation. So in future, if an entity is not exploiting within 1 year after the end of the project, then it is obliged to use the so-called Horizon results platform. So we are really, really keen this time around that all the results which come out of our projects are used later on. Strong emphasis on that. Then in terms of open access, again, we are now going a step further. Scientific publications, immediate open access necessary. Furthermore, open access to data will also be reinforced. Finally, important to note, for synergies, we have a special obligation which now makes it possible to link projects which are funded under different funding schemes, be they our research projects or projects in Digital Europe or other European funded projects. There we have linking obligations which should really enable synergies. This is really in a nutshell the highlights of the novelties that we have, and we hope we will make the beneficiaries and the stakeholders happy with that. But let's see and let's discuss.
Thank you very much, Reinhard. I would like to check first whether Victoria is with us or not. Victoria? I don't think so, which is a pity because Victoria, she has been instrumental and she could present to us the views of DG Budget on the corporate model grant agreement. So let's see whether she will be able to be connected afterwards. Then I would like to pass the floor now to Eric. Eric, do you think that deploying a corporate model grant agreement for centrally managed commission programs is something that may be envisaged to be expanded in the future also to programs under shared management as a means to simplify and further engage synergies?
Well, good morning, Anna, and thank you so much, and good morning to everyone. Well, I cannot say at this stage whether this is a good idea and whether this would work in practice, because we have to see, of course, that the funding under shared management programs are working quite differently regarding the scope and the duration. So synergies, from our point of view, is not about assimilating all the same rules and the regulations, but of course it's about more about compatibility of the different programs, which might be different for a good reason. So I could imagine that it would be more promising to work on, for instance, to improve the coordination when designing programs, align eligibility roles and cost models regarding the different regulations, and, for instance, to work, and this is something that we already have discussed to synchronize the timing of funding decisions under Horizon Europe and the programs under shared management. And one point I would like to highlight also, while with the now in the pipeline being possibility of transferring funds from the structural funds, for instance, to Horizon Europe, we already take a rather significant step in bringing these two worlds closer together. So we will see what the future holds, but I take this, your question, as a very good food for thought, that there is no limit in improving the system. And I hope this answer is fair, because it's a rather delicate question that you have raised. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Eric. Victoria, can you hear us? And can we hear you? That's the most important thing. Victoria, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Excellent. Great, Victoria. Very happy to have you back. So, Victoria, there has been a lot of criticism with regards to the corporate model grant agreement and the one-size-fits-all approach. In that context, some believe that it will not be possible to address the policy challenges and participants' specificities of the different EU programs. What are your views on this?
Well, I think that let me first put in context a little bit this exercise and why we are here, and why one fits all is sincerely the contrary of what we have undertaken. In fact, before starting, I wanted to thank you for your patience. I would like to thank as well this opportunity to address for the first time, in my case, the research community. And for this model grant agreement, in fact, following the simplification efforts that that are underlined by the new financial regulation that was adopted, as you know, in 2018, the Commission developed a single model template for all basic acts of this new financial period. And the corporate model grant agreement is just the declination in concrete terms of this effort of simplifications and the challenge that we have ahead. During a bit more than 1 year, we have been having extensive exchanges with all the director generals, with all the services that are managing the different programs. And in fact, we realized that what are rules that are good for one program are source of errors for other programs. So we needed to facilitate life for those beneficiaries that are participating to different programs. And in fact, that's what we have done. We have created a model grant agreement that was adopted by the college just before summer, where we have a harmonized template, that's true, where we have fixed harmonized horizontal rules, like corporate personal cost or corporate visibility rules, but we have seen enough flexibility precisely to adapt to the specificities of those programs that have those specificities. And we have all, because we are treating with different areas. But all across the programs, we have a harmonized approach, and this will be supported by an electronic management of the grant agreement with a same tool for the Horizon colleagues that are used to the existing IT tools. They will continue having the same one, so will not be a major difficulty for them. The template does not divert tremendously from the one that you are used to, because your success was the source of inspiration for us to build up these corporate templates. Certainly, we have simplified and aligned cost eligibility rules. We have aligned as well a corporate approach on simplified cost grants. And in order to facilitate the life of our beneficiaries, we are now working in the corporate annotated model grant agreement. You are familiar with your AGA now, which will provide horizontally applicable as well as program-specific guidance in order to facilitate your work in future. So it's not precisely a one-fits-all, it's a one-line, common to all, adaptable to the specificities of each sector of our economy and our spending programs. Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Thank you very much for these clarifications. And it's interesting to see that we have put, by the way, a poll question for everybody that they are participating to this session, which I understand is around 100 people that they are listening to us today, and they have a lot of questions. And there was one question in particular: in which extent we believe you believe that the new corporate, no, the new Horizon Europe Model Grant Agreement, as part of the corporate Model Grant Agreement, will be a catalyzer for supporting synergies between programs. And I've seen from the replies that it is really somehow divided. So I believe that our beneficiaries, participants, they still want to see, still want to use it, and to see synergies in practice, to see whether indeed this corporate approach is going to facilitate their lives and facilitate the synergies. And that brings me now to my question to Annika. Annika, you have been following the program for many, many, many years. I think you know ups and down the details of implementation of the framework programs, the big simplification that we brought in Horizon 2020. Now you have been following the discussions we had on the preparation of Horizon Europe. What do you expect more from the European Commission to facilitate and further simplify the participation of applicants, beneficiaries, stakeholders to the program, and how you see this new model grant agreement approach?
Thank you, Anna. It's a pleasure to be here. And indeed, yes, I've been following all this, and some of what my experience resonates with what you just cited from the poll. It's still, I'm really curious to really see it in practice now. And we're still in a phase of development. We're still in a phase where actually a lot of the devil is in the details, as you all know, on these issues. So really curious how it's going to turn out in the end. But in general, so looking at from the perspective of a large research performing organization, we strongly believe that simplification is indeed urgently needed, that we have a lot of issues where when we go to our scientists in Germany and say, hey, these are wonderful opportunities to collaborate on a European level, then they want to collaborate. But they have this, oh, but isn't it terribly complicated? They still have this kind of perception that it is complicated. And we still need to work on that. To some extent, it's a perception, not always the realities. To some extent, it is a reality that it can be really complex because, of course, any research organization is not only working for Horizon 2020 or Horizon Europe. It's working in many national programs. It's working in its own institutional programs, and it's working for the NIH or whatever international funders as well. So we need to have clear rules. We need to have simple rules. We need to have this legal certainty that if we do it this way, this is not going to bite us in 5 years when a final audit comes and tells us, no, this doesn't work actually. So we deeply appreciate the way you've had the regional stakeholder workshops, for example, to really collect this kind of experience from stakeholders. And what I believe, what I would put on my Christmas wish list is please do more of that, because it's something like a year ago that these national workshops took place. We haven't been asked anything since then. So we know that you're working on something. We're happy that you're working on something. In my second role as coordinator of the DESCA consortium agreement, together with my colleague Katrin Werner, we are urgently waiting for you to have a stable draft so that we can then adapt the DESCA consortium agreement for Horizon Europe. So, but we would be really, really happy to have another way of another reiteration of being able to give feedback and to say, okay, perhaps these kind of teething problems could be avoided because we see something in this clause which might bring practical problems, which we know because it's a kind of nitty-gritty financial detail and which you cannot know. So we would really be happy if you would continue with this kind of stakeholder workshops you've been having.
Thank you very much, Annika. And I think that there are a lot of questions already, and I would suggest that we move now to choose some of those questions that they are coming in and to ask you to respond. Maybe the first one, it is designated to Reinhard because it's related to Horizon 2020 measures and simplifications that we have introduced that now are going to be abandoned. Reinhard, the question is, what is the reason that led you to canceling the 1,720 hours rule? Standard days are now calculated. Is this correct? How many hours per day?
Yes, basically, as I tried to explain briefly in the introduction, this is one of the big moves forward, and that chimes directly with the subject of harmonization and the corporate approach. And I think on the basis of the experience that we have had with the last program and the programs before, we in DG Research had developed a very sophisticated personnel cost reimbursement system. We have seen this through an enormous amount of work invested in there. I can tell you that we are receiving really hundreds of questions in the help desk facility related to our personal cost calculation, which binds a lot of staff, creates a lot of lots of errors, and is also heavily criticized by the Court of Auditors. Now, what we are going to do, as I said, we are moving over from an hourly rate calculation in the corporate approach to a daily rate calculation. This is really the consequences from the experience that we have had. And of course, we have heard a number of criticisms in the makeup of this new role, that we are basically not reflecting the sophisticated personnel cost systems existing in the different beneficiary systems. But I think we have made it also clear in all our explanations that we have now a conversion facility which really allows to rebuild all the hourly based time recording systems into a day equivalent system, so that nobody is going to lose out. This is really highly technical, and we have seen that in workshops with the member states experts, also already in contact with some of the stakeholders to make people understand how we are going to operate. And we have realized after an enormous amount of explanation that the concerns are going down. And coming back to Annika's suggestion that we need to continue the dialogue with the stakeholders, I'm happy to announce that in the first half of October, we are going to do another workshop in which we will explain all the novelties, and in which, of course, the change from an hourly system to a daily system will feature prominently on the agenda. So again, there we are going to explain to you, nobody is going to be surprised when he's facing the first signature on the grant agreement. That I can really promise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reinhard. I see two questions now that I would like to ask or to pass the floor to Victoria. The first one, I mean, probably you have replied, but maybe it's good that you mention it again. What does a corporate model mean? So it's a very blunt question, accompanied by another one. When will be the new MGA and the annotation version of the MGA be available to stakeholders? Victoria.
Thank you. So what and when? The what is very easy. We will have the same model contract with the same articles, with the same structure, with the same content of the articles for all spending programs. So for those of you that are not only part of Horizon Europe, or will be part of Horizon Europe, but will be part as well of Erasmus, or will be part of the defense program, or will be part of the Connecting Europe facility, you will have in front of you the same articles, the same structure, the same annex, with a specific annex number 5. We'll start learning about that, where you will have the specificities for your programs. The rest will be the same one. This is corporate. We approach the same in the same way the expenditure of the EU budget. but we will incorporate the specificities for your sector area you are working in. When will be available the annotated grant agreement? We are working already on that. We are now declining all the different the magas for the different spending programs. We have around 30 spending programs in direct management by the Commission in the new MFF. So now we are declining this corporate, let's call it, toolbox that was adopted by the co-legislator before summer. And once we have declined those model contracts to be ready for all the spending programs, we will be detailing the annotated grant agreement that, as Aina said before, we will not leave you alone and without tools before not signing your first model grant agreement, but before proposing your or introducing your proposal for the next call that will be published. So we hope that in autumn this year, you will have already the annotated grant agreement that will inspire you when preparing your proposals that we hope will be of quality and quantity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victoria. And we do know in DG Research and Innovation that this is enormous work and effort that needs to be done. But we do believe that it will be delivered on time, and we will be ready to support you in this respect. There is one question that I think it's addressed to the Commission, but I would like to address it to Eric. Eric, under the German presidency, you have the overview of the preparation of the next financial period and the negotiations and the finalization of the negotiations of all programs. So you have this cross-cutting overview as well. So the question is, which programs do you expect to increase the synergies? Are national, regional, and private funding envisaged as well? And if so, how much flexibility? Now, this is for the Commission, of course, to plan in the new MGA to allow synergies also on the administrative side. So maybe the first part is for you. Where do you expect to see more synergies between which type of programs?
Yes, well, thank you very much for the question. Well, I guess it's self-explanatory that there are some programs already there which are very much connected to the research and innovation business that we are dealing this. For instance, the Connecting Europe facility. So there's a close interaction already there, and if there is a corporate model grant agreement facilitating the exchange and the interlinkage between the different projects, this really might help. But of course, we can also go a bit further. We've got the LIFE program, for instance, where we go into other environmental projects, which might be open for more close cooperation, different funding systems being brought together. And of course, and one area this is also very close to our hearts is Erasmus+, which is sometimes a bit neglected. But also, of course, because I know that the Commission is working on the subject, bringing education, research, innovation closer together. We have the higher education institutions as a core actor working in different fields in this area. So we see potential in this field as well. So there are a lot of opportunities. But when we talk about expanding, exploring this, I guess the first step is, of course, to introduce this kind of corporate model grant agreement to set a more or less common basis for everybody. But I would like to stress and underline the point that has been made several times, that of course we are creatures of habit. Yeah. So when we wake up, we know where the bathroom is, we know where the coffee machine is, and if someone moves the coffee machine, we get a bit nervous, and we try to find out where we get the coffee each morning. So this is the thing. I guess Reinhard made a fair point here. It's not about revolution, but evolution. So, of course, we have to tread cautiously, and we have to involve all the stakeholders so that they can get feedback, whether they are happy now with the new setting of the coffee machine. And this kind of dialogue, I guess, is essential. And also the point that Annika made is very essential, which has already been underlined in the chat, that it's necessary, if we set up the new system, just to guide everybody and say, well, this is how it could work in practice. We have the same discussion on bringing Horizon Europe funding or Horizon 2020 funding and structural funds funding from the member state side closer together. So just to demonstrate and concrete practice cases this is how you could orchestrate this, because everybody is a very eager learner, I guess, but just to show how it works in practice. And especially with the programs that I've mentioned, sometimes we're going to explore new territory. But if you can show from the Commission side, well, this could be working, I guess then everybody will be very ready to adapt to the new situation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Eric. And I think I would like to ask a question to Annika that not comes from the audience, but it comes as a follow-up of what Eric said. Annika, what is your experience of dealing with centrally managed programs such as Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe in the future, of course, and national programs or structural funds, money coming from structural funds? And how do you see, what do you expect to be done from the public sector, from us, that we are working in the public administration, to facilitate these synergies and to make your life easier?
That's a very good question. Our main scope here of my work is indeed the European angle. So we don't deal so much with the national fundings. I know, but I would have to check whether that's still a recent information, that some of the Humboldt centers actually have made a management decision never ever to go into Interreg projects ever again, because they seemingly were so incredibly nightmarish as regards administrative effort. So I think it's indeed this trying to figure out where in the reality, and that's really a tough job for you, where in the reality are you going to have the nitty-gritty clashes between the different funding systems and their expectations on accounting, and to what extent can you allow that if an organization was audited on this project from one side, that there aren't going to come 3 different audit firms later on for looking at the same project from the angle of a different funder and re-questioning everything again. So I think that's really an important part of it. The sheer effort invested from the side of the participants in audits shouldn't be underestimated. Quite often you have somebody from a consultancy firm who in a perfect world knows the program and quite often doesn't, and so quite often you have to explain Horizon 2020 to those person, and then you have to, if you then have the same project discussed twice, is really complicated. Also, we would really appreciate if research infrastructure cooperation could be facilitated also on the structural funds and Horizon Europe angle. So I think that also would be something I would urge you to look at.
Thank you very much, Annika, for this. I think this is our challenges that we all have in our mind, and actually synergies between Horizon Europe, Future Horizon Europe, and structural funds is in the making. I would put it like this. A lot of interesting work has been done internally in the Commission under the German presidency, and we hope very soon that we have the implementation modalities in place that will enabling to reinforce and facilitate the synergies between shared management and Horizon Europe, in particular in areas, as you clearly said, like, for example, research infrastructure, simplifying the seal of excellence, and other areas where already there are the possibilities for collaboration, but they are not encouraged because it is complex to do so. I will take a couple of questions more that I see in the chat, and maybe I would ask Victoria to complement one question. Also in the context of synergies. Victoria, the question is, how much flexibility do you plan in the new model grant agreement to allow synergies also on the administrative side? You cannot hear, Victoria?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you very well. Could you repeat the question?
Yes, I repeat. How much flexibility do you plan in the new model grant agreement to allow synergies also on the administrative side?
Administrative side.
In the sense of administration, so implementation and administration. That's the question, but you can, of course, respond in the way.
Okay, I can figure out that what you were talking about administration is, I don't know, maybe how in between the different programs we are addressing the administration eligible cost of the programs. But I think that this is perfectly covered today with, as was mentioned by Rainer before, with the new personnel cost, the way that we have put forward in a horizontal way in the model grant agreement for all the programs, not only limited to Horizon Europe. So we essentially think that the fact that we are counting personnel in the same way for all the spending programs, this will be certainly already an element that will help for those synergies. We are working as well now among the different programs where we have identified that there is more possibility of synergies, as mentioned before by Eric, some of them, and we are going to try to see how we will adapt the different ratios, because sometimes percentages are different from one program to the others, and we are now analyzing, trying to figure out how this will work in the future. I hope that I have answered the question of the person. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Victoria. I suggest now we go to the second question that was published in the poll, and we have received a reply. The question is, in your view, to which extent can the program-specific provisions for Horizon Europe be or still captured in the corporate context? And it's very interesting, the replies that we have received, because again, they are very much divided. So 34%, they say, I don't know, which means, Reinhard, we need urgently to organize a workshop. It's very clear. 29% says that to a good extent, whereas 21% says to a medium extent. So I think there is an appetite to know more. There are concerns, very clear. To a large extent, it's only 9%. And of course, the philosophy through the corporate model grant agreement is different. We don't incorporate just the other models, but we take the best of the other models and to make them corporate. Plus, we add new features, and then we keep the specificities as well. But maybe, Reinhard, you can say a few words about it, how we have this, let's say, structure established so that we have the possibility to integrate and complement the corporate model grant agreement with Horizon Europe specificities.
Yes, Anna, I think that is mainly a question of the design of the model grant agreement. Now you will find the corporate elements, notably in terms of funding and reporting in the corporate part, the main body of the text of the model grant agreement. There you also still have program-specific options. For example, our project-based remuneration is in this core part of the text just as an option. But the specificities of each program in the next spending period, notably when it comes to policy design, you will find in a dedicated annex, the Annex 5, where we, for example, are putting all our very specific rules concerning IPR and ethics, research integrity, where we are really not comparable with all the other programs where we are much more sophisticated, justified by our special character of our projects. So that you can already see that in the design of the corporate model, together with this Annex 5, where the specificities are in, we really have a system which at the same time makes it possible to have these synergies, notably in the context of funding. And on the other side, when it comes to policy specificities, they are well spelled out in this Annex 5, where basically people see that there is no revolutioning happening in Horizon Europe compared to Horizon 2020. So that would be a bit my answer on this, how we are trying to address it.
Thank you very much, Reinhard. Annika, You have been following, as we said, the program over the years. And you have seen that the effort that we put, and it's going now to be expanded across the Commission program, is the electronic management of the calls, of the work programs, and the grant management as well through the funding and tenders portal and through the e-grant system that we have put in place. Digital transformation is one of the priorities for European administration, for public administration. Are you happy with what has been already delivered, also in the particular context of grant management? And what thing do you think needs to be improved in the future?
Excellent question. I need to get back to you on that one because I would need to ask our administrators how they are feeling at the moment. Remember that the last time we discussed that, there was overall a feeling that yes, we see this in general. We see a strong improvement, and we also really appreciate that there is we perceive a willingness of the people in the Commission who are dealing with this to really listen when we say, okay, this practical detail is really annoying because we get emails every 20 seconds or so. I mean, there's a real there was and is a real willingness to react to feedback and to improve. And by now, I think it's a really very well functioning system. And I think if this spirit of also reacting to the ground experiences, if that continues, then I think it's going to also be wonderful in Horizon Europe. So in general, I would say the overall development is a very positive one.
And if I may have a follow-up discussion, annotated model grant agreement, we have received a lot of criticisms in the past that it's too long, too complicated, and now we're talking about a corporate, even more complicated, I would put it like this, annotated model grant agreement. What do you expect from us? How do you think we could communicate this? How we can make it more user-friendly for all of you?
Yeah, again, a really, really complicated question because you have so different readers you want to reach. You have the scientists managing a project who should really know the important parts of what he signed up to when he signed the grant agreement. And that is a completely different audience than the legal department or the IPR department of the same organization which signed up to the project. It's so the legal departments, the IPR guys, they want the details. They want really to know very much in depth what do you really, really mean, and how does, in this specific circumstances, how does that translate into what you expect? On the other hand, you need to have some really fairly down-to-earth communication also, so that the people, the scientists and the business participants in the project, they don't give up immediately and seeing, okay, this is 300 pages. No, I'm not going to read this. So possibly have something more user-friendly in an documented ways that you can click a lot and follow up on things, and you are not confronted with this 300, 500 pages document, but rather can really zoom into where your question lies, and then have a fairly overarching need-to-know document, which is really, really short. That would be my feeling.
Thank you very much, Annika. Eric, I touched the issue of digital transformation, and I think this is an important aspect for all public administrations, for member states through their management of shared management, national programs, for the European Commission. COVID-19 demonstrated that without a digital administration, it's not possible to do project management. On the other side, of course, the researchers had a particular problem with COVID-19 because some of those, they were not able to access their laboratories. But still, digital transformation is a key priority in the years to come. So how you think in your member state and in the feedback that you receive from the other member states, this work that has been done in the central management services of the European Commission could be also transposed in the future in the member states administration, or what are the efforts that you are currently doing in this respect?
Yes. Well, as you know, we in Europe, we have a very complex system with the EU level, with the national level, with the regional level. So, and everybody agrees, I guess, the digital transformation will come whether we like it or not. So the question will be, of course, if you would like to interlink the different levels, that there is a dialogue, as we already said, when it comes to implementing new model grant agreements, to talk to each other. What does work? How does it function in practice? That's the same thing. So you have implemented a system. The member states are implementing a system. Sometimes at regional level, you have different systems. So this is how complex and diverse the European world is. So of course, there's an opportunity to learn from each other. So it would be really a waste of public resources not to see what the other side is doing and not to see where they complement each other, because at some point we are going to talk about transferring data, using data in a different way. This is what we do with the European Open Science Cloud, which is heavily pushed also by the member state side to say, how can we use the data transnationally? So the same thing with the digital transformation. So it will come. Everybody's working on it. It's very hot in Germany, but also in other member states as well. You're working on this. The question is, are these systems compatible? Is it usable for everybody? Is it understandable? Can we work maybe on a common system? But these are open questions, and there is not a single answer saying, yeah, this is how we do it. There is not dictatorship. But if someone takes the lead and say, yes, I'm bold, I'm trying to implement a new system, I guess there will be a lot of people in Europe saying, hey, we can learn from this, we can maybe adapt, we can maybe adopt this, and let's move on and make it more stronger. So I guess the point that you've made, I guess to Annika saying regarding the electronic system now, to ask, well, how can we make everybody happy? You should abandon all hope. You will never make everybody happy, because there will always be a percentage saying, no, we do it differently in our institution. No, my director's against it, and these kind of things. The question, and this is why you are in a delicate position on the European level, is who do you talk to? What's the feeling for a majority saying, this is how we move it? Yeah, of course, for instance, with the daily rates, you will be pushed by some people and say, yeah, it doesn't work, and these kind of things. And maybe they're right. But we had the same discussion on the invoicing in Horizon 2020. So this is a dialogue, what could work. But this is a test and trial, one step forward, two steps forward. But I guess the digital thing is one complex issue where the Commission, the member states, the regional levels have to work together, because at some point, I guess this would be the vision, that we have a system all over Europe which can be used by everybody to make it just easier. But this is not something that we're going to fix in 1 year or 2 years. This is really a constant process of improvement.
Thank you very much, Eric. Indeed, and in the context of European research area, we had a lot of discussions about how we can share data between the European Commission and the member states. And if I may have a dream, I would really love to have in the future an EU system for program management, where the beneficiaries, they could easily participate, they have common ways of implement programs and access to data. And then we can use all this data ourselves in the public administration for monitoring and decision-making purposes. So we are far away for the moment. Yeah, Eric, please.
Yes, just one thought. COVID-19 is, of course, a tragedy, and it really we really hit the wall, everybody. And every loss of life is a tragedy. But one thing happened, that everybody realized, oh my God, what I'm going to do. We come from a world, and in Europe and how research innovation business works, that we are in and out of airplanes, trains, cars, all kind of meetings. And then it was just stopping. And everybody had to adopt. And I was really impressed how even the public administrations, there are prejudices against the mobility and agility of public administrations, could adapt and adopt new strategies and embrace new technological solutions. So what you're doing in the R&I days, now doing it full speed just via video conference, is really impressive. So what COVID showed is we have to develop, and we have an alternative path. So we are now at the start of a new process. I guess in 20 years, the European world, how we do business, will really look differently. So this is maybe a positive side effect of Corona, just to say, hey, you have to do things differently. And a lot of people have been shaking up.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you for stating that what we do in the RNIs is really impressive. And I have to say there was also a lot of criticism internally before kicking off these days, and it proves that it works extremely well. We have access to big audience that we would never have the opportunity to do so if we have a physical event. And as teacher, research, and innovation, we always innovate. So this is the positive thing. I have a couple of questions that I think I would like the first one to address it to Reinhard. Is about EIT, Reinhard. What are the plans and the work that we are doing in order to integrate EIT and the way of and the grants of EIT in the model grant agreement?
Yeah, I think the simple message now is that indeed we are integrating the EIT itself into the e-grant setup. So that in future the EIT will be fully profiting from the full IT landscape. And they will be using the corporate model grant agreement to the full extent. This is, of course, something which involved a lot of work and discussions between us and our colleagues in the EIT in Budapest. But I think through this learning exercise, it was also realized that this offers quite a lot and sufficient flexibility. And I think it's a proof of the test of the system, of the corporate system, that even an entity as the EIT, which is very specific, could be integrated into the corporate mechanism and will be fully on board in the next season. So I think that's quite a lot. If I may, just one other point on terms of on the AGA. I've seen a number of questions on the AGA, and I also heard Annika explaining why the AGA is needed and what sort of AGA is needed. And I think we will not go around it because lots of practitioners love it and they like the level of detail, the examples which are given. It is really a guidance. And I agree notably to people sitting in the admin, finance and legal departments, but that is necessary. These are the people who are providing the advice, who are basically saying, yes, this we can sign or this we cannot sign. But on the other side, we are also working, don't know when we will be able to roll this out, on a guide or and explanations, not for dummies, but in a more down-to-earth language, not legalese, in which we will explain the main consequences of signing, of funding, etc. So my colleagues and myself are looking into this. We'll also discuss this with the member state experts at further and at a given point. But this is a project in our mind because we know that there are two different audiences. Annika, they are the scientists themselves, and on the other side, you have the finance and legal experts. I just wanted to add this on. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Reinhard. And I see one proposal in the screen, which I think it's very important, that the National Contact Point Network is there to assist with the AMCA. So give a prominent place, even on different places on the funding and tender portal, so the newcomers can find easily this possibility. So it's good to think it's good reflection. At least for Horizon Europe program, we have this network of the national contact point that they're really instrumental in providing explanation at the member state level. And it is important, I think, Reinhard, that we do so. We have 7 minutes left. And I would like to ask a concluding remark from all of you. May I will start with Victoria. Why Victoria? Because she has been, let's say, the leader in this whole process of the corporate model grant agreement. And we have been discussing with her, as she already stated, 1.5 years ago, when this big project has been started. It was not easy. It was very challenging. And as I see, there are still a lot of ambiguity from the stakeholders on whether this project is going to facilitate their lives or not. So, of course, the experience of Horizon Europe, the first grants will demonstrate that. But Victoria, you have been working in the Commission for many, many years. You have been dealing with other programs, Connecting Europe Facility. You have been working very close with us on Horizon Europe preparation in particular, but also on Horizon 2020 implementation. And you have been reviewing in this context of the model grant agreement all the Commission managed programs, the centrally managed Commission programs. Do you still believe that what you have done is going to help the life of the beneficiaries and it's going to be a step forward, innovative and modern public administration?
Thank you, Anna. I have to say that if I were not convinced, I will not be here. I joined the Commission quite late in my professional career, working in the private sector and dealing often with European affairs. And already from the outside, I very soon get to the conclusion that being one Commission, we used to be quite a lot of different Directorate Generals. I suppose that the national administration is a bit the same thing. We have a national administration and the different ministries. When I joined the Commission, I started to work in the implementation of the spending programs, different of them. Every time I was moving from one program to another, I had the impression that I had to reinvent the wheel again and to relearn everything again. Then I was offered the possibility to go to the corporate services, and then started the idea to do something for our beneficiaries, to simplify their life, to allow to those that want to work with us in different economic sectors to have the possibility to do a one-size-fits-all, but adapt it to their needs. And on the other side, when we were thinking this new financial framework, we were reflecting on the fact of how we could facilitate this. And this is why we proposed this model template for the Basic Act. Already starting the simplification by harmonizing all of those Basic Acts, we have done a major step there. We really thank member states that have taken this challenge and that have followed us in most of the cases, deviating from we are used to, if this worked before, why is not going to work now? And sincerely, I am convinced that we are simplifying. And in fact, my experience in working with different spending programs, I can tell you that there are no such big difference. There is only different habits. But the coffee machines and the different flavors of the coffee ended being coffee. I hope that we are doing something that sincerely is going to help you as our partners in the research and in the other sectorial areas, because we have been working hard, really convinced that it is for you as well as for our services, but in principle, in particular, for our beneficiaries in the member states. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Victoria. Eric, are you convinced?
Well, Victoria made a very convincing case, actually. Well, as you know, we have the tendency, because we're in the public administration and also on the scientific side, we are orchestrated and organized in different, sometimes hierarchical structures. We have the tendency to stay put in our boxes. So, but one of the topics which we have to deal with in the next couple of years or decades even is that we are obliged to get out of these boxes and talk to the other guy in the next box. So what happens is we have basically three factors. We get more and more money. Well, maybe not the big bucket this time, but we get more than Horizon 2020. And I guess this tendency will hold on. We will see. But we get more money. Then, of course, the pressure is very high that we bring all the different funding systems closer together because it makes much more sense. More bang for the buck and more efficient use of public money. So this is just the pressure and the expectations of everybody to get as much output out of the public money which is spent. And of course, the internal pressure to make the program itself more efficient, user-friendly, easier to use, all this kind of stuff. So we did a lot of good things. you did the hard work with the single reimbursement rates, with the single portal, everything. And of course, there are some issues to be dealt with right now with the new proposal, with daily rates has been mentioned, lump sums and audit systems. So this is all fine, and this has to be cleared. And maybe it's necessary to revise a proposal. This is just business. But the fact is that now it's time to have a closer look at the different spending programs and realize that they are part of a system. But the problem is sometimes they speak a different language. Victoria, we're talking about different habits, yeah? So they're talking sometimes different languages. They have different habits and these kind of things. And this has to be solved in a way. So, and what I take from the discussion today is really I wouldn't call it urgent request, but the expectation that everybody is able to contribute and share his views. How does it work in practice? How does it work internally with Horizon Europe? How does it work with the synergies of the different programs? Because we don't have all the answers yet. You don't pretend to say, well, this is now the best proposal and now be happy and leave me alone. This is work to do that we all have to do and say, how does it work in practice? The one thing is, how does it work Horizon Europe internally? This is something that we have to sort out because you have a stable basis from Horizon 2020. There are only minor changes, so this is a good thing. But also, how does it work in practice if we really try to get these programs together? And nobody has the answer to this. This is something that we all have to chip and say, now I have a project done, financed by different resources. And this will going to be the challenge in the next couple of years. So I guess this is the right step now, but we have to keep pushing all together. And that's why I really appreciate that you're doing this effort, bringing everybody together in this exercise, and you do all kinds of workshops so that everybody has the opportunity to get engaged and say, yes, now I've understood what the purpose is. How can I make this work? Can I say that it doesn't work? We have to change it. This kind of dialogue is essential. Otherwise, you will be standing there with a proposal which nobody will accept. So this is really an excellent exercise. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. And I just realized that we have 283 attendees, not 100, which means all these very convincing statements they are communicated broadly. And I would like to ask Annika. Annika, after this session, what will be the messages that you are going to pass to your associate stakeholders and interesting members of your association?
I think I'm going to indeed convey the message that there has been a lot of effort put into this, and that they have the impression that there is also a willingness to continue this process, because I agree with everything that was said about the motivation. I explained about the Interreg experience, which was an experience of competing funding systems not working well together. So I think the overarching ambition behind this project is one I fully share. I think it's now really important to have a constant feedback loop somehow in the system, because as Eric was saying, as all of you were saying, it's a new endeavor, it's an ambitious endeavor, and it's impossible at this stage to predict all the details of how this is going to work in the reality. So you need to have somehow a process installed that allows you not only to explain what you plan, but also to gather feedback from the people who are saying, okay, I see why you thought it was a brilliant idea, but now I tell you how it happened in practice, and then perhaps we can discuss how to even improve it. So, but I have the feeling from this discussion that there's a willingness for this process, and that makes me very optimistic.
Thank you, Annika. And I would like to conclude this session, which was very fruitful, with Reinhard, because Reinhard will be at the other end to provide all these technical details and the practical implementation of how, in reality, the corporate versus Horizon Europe grant agreement is going to work in the next financial period. And as you know, that we have done an immense effort to go to all member states and to discuss with everybody the implementation modalities of Horizon Europe over the last year. This huge outreach events will continue in the year to come, because we do believe that outreach, discussion, and feedback from those that they are using our tools, our model grant agreement, it is extremely important, because we have to update it if it is necessary, if it doesn't work. Reinhard, what are the next steps? How we can communicate the details and how do you expect to engage you and your team with the beneficiaries?
Yes, Anna, yes, the concluding remarks. Now, of course, the big work still lies ahead. Once we have really finalized this model grant agreement, and we are still not there. We had also, through the COVID crisis, still to adapt some IPR rules, which are now fed into the process, where we are still having discussions with the member state expert group. But once this has been done, there will, of course, be a lot of interaction with the stakeholders. As I said before, within the first half of October, we are doing this workshop with stakeholders where we'll soon try to make it public, invite people to join, to explain all the novelties and specificities of the model grant agreement of Horizon Europe. At the same time, we will continue our capital tour. That is definitely something which is planned and will happen. The expectations are also clearly there. Then we also have the AGA, on which we will now jointly work with our colleagues in DG Budget and the legal service, because this was very much a joint exercise. And I would also very much welcome if during our talks with the stakeholders later on, and when we develop the annotated grant agreement, this is very much of a corporate effort, so that this is jointly done with the different services in the Commission, so DG Budge, legal service, but might be also other programs which are close to it, so that they can see how we, together with the feedback we are receiving from all these specialists, the NCPs and the stakeholders, the member state experts, what is unclear, what still needs to be fine-tuned. I think if we do this jointly, then not only the Horizon Europe stakeholders, but also the ones from other programs where we have the link over the horizontal services can benefit from it. And in the end, we again, when we want to create synergies. So I think our work is clearly carved out for the coming month and years, jointly together. I'm looking forward to it also with my colleagues, even if it's a lot of work. But I really like this interaction because we have learned quite a lot already in this process. If it comes to this hourly rate to daily rate changes, we got a lot of inspirations and learned things from the member state experts. And that has helped us on the process enormously to implement the system. And we need you out there to create this together. So that would be my concluding remark.
Thank you very much, Reinhard. And I would like to inform you that you are participating from abroad, that although this year we didn't have the possibility to have these tables where we can meet and we can exchange views, we have an e-chat possibility in our hub, the implementation and synergies hub. So you are more than welcome to send your questions in this e-hub, in this e-chat, and we will be able to reply to those during the RNI days. Thank you very much. Thank you, Victoria, Eric, Annika, Reinhard. Hope to see you soon physically. And thanks to all the participants for the active engagement to this virtual session. We all learn and we all develop new skills. Looking forward to meet you in persons in the coming future. Thank you and bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.